I think it's a really great moment for us at the Business of Sport conference to invite onto the stage our speaker to give our keynote address. I think that China is now an absolute leader in world sport. And to give us an overview into where the nation wants to go with sport, not just football, but the Olympics, athletics, golf, and so on, I'd like to welcome onto stage His Excellency Liu Xiaoming, Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to the United Kingdom, up onto the stage to give today's keynote address. Ambassador Liu.
Jim, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to join you at the Telegraph's third Business of Sport conference. This is a premier annual event that aims to steer the UK sport industry to growth, innovation, collaboration. I'm sure it is well positioned to unite sports, business, media, and cultural leaders under one roof for a unique forum of learning, networking, and cooperation. Jim asked me to talk about the development of sport in China and cooperation opportunities for China and Britain in the field of sport. This is a big topic as well as an important one. Let me take this opportunity to share with you some of my observations and thoughts. With the world's largest population, China is a big sports nation. We attach great importance to sports and development sport industry. The sport excellence and level of participation is a significant indicator of social progress and human achievements. It is a reflection of a nation's overall strength and cultural advancement. Sports improves health, sports builds characters, sports embodies human spirit of ever striving to overcome difficulties, to reach for the limit, to be faster, higher, and stronger. For well over 60 years since the founding of New China, in particular during the nearly 4 decades of reform and opening up, China has traveled an extraordinary journey in development of sports. Remarkable progress and achievements have been made in the following 5 aspects. First, nationwide sports and fitness fervor has reached a new high. Before the founding of New China, the Chinese were labeled as a sick man of the East. The average life expectancy was only 35 years. Today, the standards of living and public health in China has been tremendously improved. The average life expectancy has reached 76 years, much higher than the average in developing nations. The label of the sick man of the East has long gone. There is a nationwide enthusiasm for sports and fitness exercise. According to the statistics, there are about 60 most popular sports and fitness exercises in China. More than a third of China's population take part in sports and fitness exercise frequently. Again, this is also a way higher than average in developing countries. There are more than 1.7 million sports venues nationwide. More than half of all cities and counties have sports centers in China. In the past decade, the area of sports ground per person has doubled. Second, China's achievements in competitive sports have set new records. The past decades have recorded progress by leaps and bounds. The journey began in 1952, when New China sent its first ever delegation to the Olympic Games. Only one swimmer managed to take part in the 100-meter backstroke event. Fast forward to 1984, China achieved a historical breakthrough in its Olympic gold medal count. That is from 0 to 15. In 2008, China hosted the Olympic Games in Beijing. It was a dream come true. Here in London in 2012, Chinese sportsmen and women achieved the best results of all overseas events where they have ever competed. In Rio last year, Chinese athletes excel in events where they have traditionally maintained competitive edge. Then came Sochi, a major breakthrough for China. Once again, the first gold medal in the key winter event. From 2010 to 2015, Chinese athletes won a total of 596 world champions and set 57 new world records. That was an important contribution from China to world sports. Third, the reforms of China's sports administration have taken new steps. For nearly 4 decades since reform and opening up, China's sports administration has undergone profound reform. Today, the computation is introduced into administration of sports as we promote professional and commercial sports and build modern sports governance. Take football, for example. We have taken more than 50 reform initiatives and measures. We encourage diversified sources of investment in football. We hope that capital market will help football club grow. Going forward, China will continue to reform administrative system of both multi-sport and single-sport events. This will aim at opening up sports sector to the market and to the non-public sectors. Fourth, China's sport industry has become a new economic highlight. The past few years have witnessed continuous expansion in China's sports industry. Sports-related consumption has notably increased. The total output of China's sports and related industries increased from 165 billion US dollars in 2013 to 102.5 billion in 2014 and 255 billion in 2015. This translates into a much higher annual increment of 0.07% of GDP than in previous years. Moreover, there's increasing integration between sports industry and other sectors such as culture, tourism, public health, elderly care, and IT. This has increased multiplying effects in sport industry and led to a growth surge. Fifth, China's sports collaboration with the world has entered into a new era. The ping-pong diplomacy of 1970s has been a much-told story. It shows how sports played a significant role in China's diplomacy, especially the rapprochement between China and the United States. Today, sports have continued to draw China and the world closer. China has hosted a number of major sports events, including 2008 Beijing Olympics and 2010 Asian Games in Guangzhou, and 2014 Youth Olympic Games in Nanjing. These events have brought the world to the doorsteps of China and built a platform for exchanges between China and the rest of the world. In 2022, China is going to host the Winter Olympics in Beijing. By then, Beijing will become the first city in the world to have hosted both summer and the Winter Olympics. All this have demonstrated China's commitment to world sports, and they have also facilitated China's exchanges and cooperation with the world. There's no doubt China is a big sports nation, but we are fully aware, despite our progress, China is not yet a strong sports nation. There are still problems and challenges in the form of uneven development and inadequate administrative capability. But these problems and challenges are more like growing pain. In the long run, China's sports sector has a broad prospect and a huge market to offer. That is why many would compare China's sports sector or China's sports industry to a gold mine. I think such a comparison could not be more accurate for mainly three reasons. I call them three bonuses. First, China has a huge population bonus. Statistics show that the 380 million Chinese people participate in sports regularly. Of these people, 130 million engage in general outdoor exercises and 60 million in outdoor sports. This huge number is important in two ways. It means a solid foundation for sports, and it signifies a huge market. Second, China has a reliable economic bonus. For years, China's economy has maintained steady growth. The sports sector is fast emerging as a new growth point. This green, sunshine industry is characterized by its ability to drive affiliated sectors, its low energy consumption, and its high added values. By 2020, the total output of China's sports industry will have exceeded $450 billion. The sports service industry will account for 30% of the added values. Consumption on sports will account for over 2.5% of per capita disposable income. Third, China has a significant reform bonus. The development of sports is already part of China's national strategy. In 2014, the Chinese government set a target for sports to grow into an industry of $750 billion by 2025. In the foreseeable future, the commercialization and industrialization of sport in China will take a quicker pace. In turn, this will make supply side of sports industrial chain more accessible. This will also gradually make sports sector more consumption-driven. All this indicate a growing demand for domestic and foreign investment. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about sports and sport industry, we can never forget Britain. Britain is a birthplace of modern sports and sports industry. London has hosted 3 modern Olympic Games and boasts long-standing tradition, rich experience, and unmatched advantages. The British government attaches importance to sports. It is clearly manifested in its Moving More, Living More initiative of 2014, its Sporting Future, a new strategy for an active nation of 2015. In addition to tradition and strategy, the British athletes have made impressive achievements and performance. Their performance in Rio was outstanding. Britain is also not short of world-renowned events, from Premier League to Wimbledon Championship to Rugby World Cup, the Open Championship and Tour of Britain. Premier League, among others, is one of the most influential and successful professional leagues. It's fair to say that sports are indispensable for the British people, and sports have become a pillar industry for British economy. In recent years, China-UK Sports Corporation has produced fruitful results and gained a strong momentum. More opportunities for even greater cooperation lie ahead. It is time to seize the opportunities and achieve new success in China-UK Sports Corporation. What are the opportunities? I believe there are 4 major opportunities. First and foremost, the opportunity provided by the golden era of China-UK relations. This golden era was unveiled with the President Xi Jinping's successful visit to UK in 2015. During his visit, President Xi visited Manchester City Football Academy. His visit is a strong endorsement of closer China-UK exchanges cooperation in football and other sports events. This is in the interest of improving fitness of our two peoples and strengthening the friendship between our two nations. Our shared commitment to the golden era maps out the future of China-UK bilateral ties. This shared commitment charts the course for our cooperation in sports and in all other fields of culture and people-to-people exchanges. Second, the opportunity of deepening China-UK cooperation in cultural and people-to-people exchanges. Within the framework of China-UK high-level people-to-people exchanges mechanism, China-UK have maintained strategic communication and worked jointly to provide top-level design for sports collaboration. 5 years on since the mechanism was launched, China and UK have had a tangible cooperation in a wide range of areas of education, science and technology, culture, health, media, and sports. Such cooperation has vigorously promoted the friendship and mutual understanding between China and the UK. Mrs. Carrie Bradley, Secretary for Culture and Media and Sports, went to China last December for the 4th meeting of the mechanism. That meeting led a series of important agreements on how to strengthen bilateral sports cooperation between our two countries. The 5th round-up meeting will be held in UK at the end of this year. Both China and UK will make good use of this platform to expand sports cooperation both in width and in depth. We should enhance, in particular, the sports exchanges between our young people. This will inject fresh dynamics into the collaboration in sports field between China and UK. Third, the opportunity of matching Chinese and British strengths in sports. The sport industry in China is booming, attracting an ever-growing number of population. There's an urgent need for advanced expertise and techniques in sports management. The UK is experienced in running sports facilities, sports health services, sports medicine, and other related undertakings. These are the areas where China and UK can match up our needs and engage in closer cooperation. The business sectors should also step up cooperation in the field of competitive sports. They can work with each other and explore new ways to integrate sports with media, culture, science and technology for win-win results. Fourth, the opportunity provided by Winter Olympics and other sports events. China-Britain had an effective cooperation in run-up to and during the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games and 2012 London Olympic Games. The upcoming Winter Olympics in Beijing will again be a great opportunity for China-UK in sports collaboration. Our two countries have already signed an MOU in this regard. We should continue to strengthen our commitment to closer exchanges and deepen our cooperation in order to produce new outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, Pierre de Coubertin, the founding father of modern Olympics, said this: "For each individual, sport is a possible source of inner improvement. A better world could be brought about only by better individuals. It is my sincere hope that leaders of sports, business, media and culture from both China and Britain will seize the valuable opportunities before you. I hope you will join hands to advance sports exchanges and cooperation. This will enable continuous inner improvement of our people and make our world a better place." In conclusion, with this year's Business of Sport conference a complete success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Liu. I might prevail on the Ambassador to take some questions from the floor for a few moments. So if anyone's got a question, put your hand up and we'll bring a microphone to you. One of the questions I wanted to put to you, Ambassador, is we saw President Xi at Manchester City. Clearly, he is a personal endorser of sport. Eventually, he'll move on. Will that be embraced by the government? Has it become permanent government policy to endorse sport in China?
Certainly, it is. As I said in my presentation, that sports has already become our national strategy. And one of the reasons is not only for competitive sports, but also for the fitness and a good health campaign for the average Chinese people. And of course, President himself take the lead in this regard. And also, I think the message that President tried to send by visiting Manchester City is also that he believes, and the government believes, and we believe, that there's a great potential for collaboration between China and UK. And I said in my presentation that UK is the leader in sports industry, not only because of its tradition, history, but also because of its experience and the cutting edge. So I think we turn to UK for partnership in sports collaboration.
You mentioned the 2022 Winter Olympics. Can we look a bit further forward? What next? 2030 Football World Cup?
It's always a dream for Chinese people. People say in China, the people, it's a big fan. I think the football really attracts more fans than any other sport in China. Maybe it also applies to the world. Chinese people have three dreams for football. I think dream one is to be a champion of Asian Games in football. When Chinese people watch that the Chinese team is beaten by a not very big country, and even economically that not developed, they feel very disappointed. A country much smaller, maybe the population is even smaller than a county of China, and you know how the people feel about that. So they want to see the Chinese team will perform better. The first dream is that China can win the Asian game in football. I think the closest we are, it may be the third or fourth place. I can't remember where we stand. The second dream is to host World Cup as you mentioned, about 2030, maybe not in that event, but looking, as you said, looking down the road, we hope that someday China will host the World Cup. Third, of course, is I just learned this word, basket list, right? So on top of the basket list for Chinese, for football, is the champion of the World Cup. So that is the three.
By when? When do you want to be champions of the world?
I do not know. I hope in my lifetime. I certainly hope to see that. Yeah.
Any questions? Yeah, gentleman at the back.
Hi, Mike Miller from the World Olympians Association. How does sport fit into the recently announced Healthy China 2030 initiative?
Say it again?
How does sport fit into the Healthy China 2030 initiative?
I think I touched briefly about this strategy. I think we'll continue to deepen the reform of sports administration in China to make more, first, market-oriented, second, consumption-driven, third, to have a less government interference, let the market to determine. And so we're very pleased to see that there are more and more collaboration between Chinese entrepreneurs and the foreign businesses coming. So you can see the market is more open. China is more integrated into the world, both in terms of not only sports events, but also in terms of sports management, sport medicine, sports services. So it will be a wide range, cross-board reform of China's sports system.
Ambassador Liu's very busy. I think we've got time for another couple of questions. Yeah, gentleman at the front. Microphone coming.
My name is John Reynolds. I'm a freelance journalist. Just in terms of Chinese investment in English football, do you think over the next 5 years we're going to see maybe a significant number of Chinese owners of Premier League football, or we're going to see more of that coming?
Yeah, I would foresee that will happen. I did mention the Chinese overseas purchase. For the past 5 years, we've seen a booming of Chinese investment overseas. I think in 2011, the overseas purchase of Chinese investment is about 4 million. Last year, by September, this number jumped into 1.4 billion. So for the past 5 years, Chinese investment in sports industry overseas increased by 350 times. And we know that Chinese businesses purchased about over a dozen European clubs, including some of the fine, best clubs here in UK, including the Aston Villa and some others. You know, I myself gradually turned into a fan of football. I do not watch football that often, but now, the coming Chinese investment forced me to be more focused on what is going on here in UK. So I gradually start learning the culture, the history of English football. I believe that in the next 5 years, you will see more Chinese owners of British clubs. But the purpose is not only to buy the clubs, it's more to learn the tradition, to learn the culture, to have more integration with the British sports. So as I said in my presentation, I believe from the perspective of China, from perspective of foreign investors, there might be a gold mine in China's sport industry. But for Chinese, for a sports industry, I think there's a golden opportunity for Chinese sports to engage with the world sports. I always see it as a win-win. collaboration between sport industries of China and Britain. We always, as I said, that UK is the leader in many aspects. So that's why I think there's more opportunities between China and UK in sport industry. Thank you.
Okay, one last question. Gentleman just here with the laptop.
Hi there, my name's Matthew Campelli. I'm from a magazine called Sports Management. You mentioned the expertise from British companies and more cooperation you want. Where would you say the priorities lie? Where do you think the British are the best in terms of expertise, and what do you need most?
I think there's a lot areas where China look for UK for collaboration. As I said, there's both advantages for China's sport industry and also weakness. So we would like to have more collaboration between China and UK in the area where China is not very strong, like sports management. I'm very pleased you are from newspaper sports management. I think you can offer a lot of experience in that aspect. And also the sports event, title, sports title, and also the sports products, the chain of the sports products, the market developing. I think this is really a new, when it comes to sports in China, people immediately come into their mind is competitive sports. Athletes, how our athletes performed in major sports events, Olympic Games, World Cup, and so on. And second is fitness exercises. Not many people are familiar with the market, with the management, with the ownership, with the club, with the league. Though China Football League is now, in terms of fund, is the 5th in the world, but in terms of management, I think they are still way behind, comparing with other major leagues in Europe, even in Latin America. So I think there's a great potential for China and UK to collaborate in many aspects in the sport industry. Thank you.
On that note, Ambassador Liu, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. And I think there's a job for that guy in China. So,
of course. I think there's a great opportunities, a lot of opportunities.
So thank you very much indeed for joining us today. That was great.